All right, let's open up the meeting. It's 5:30. Roll call shows all committee members here, with the exclusion of Kelly, who may show up later. Chris is here, Dave is here, and Jane is here. First item, chickens kept in the village. This has been an issue that we've been trying to address, and it's actually fell on my court some time ago, but it's a good time to get it started now. I don't know how long the process takes. We'll have to come up with some guidelines, which will probably have to be implemented by the police department for inspection purposes and licenses, fees. But the three that I gave you, the first one, I went back and looked, and that's Two Rivers. I'm pretty sure it's Two Rivers. And you might even want to bring it up if you can.
The item that I was talking about, or this one?
This first page.
Okay.
The second one is Johnson Creek, the village of, and then New Glarus. Now, there's a lot of points on here, a lot of stuff that we will probably have to deal with. I think our first venture into this might want to be just kind of a small, short approach. You know, I think the more we take, we'll address the big issues, and we'll need some guidance, probably from Chris on that. Chris, have you ever experienced this?
I have.
You have, good. So you're a good resource. Where?
Shayacton.
Oh, okay.
We had the chicken ordinance over there.
You did have or still have?
Well, we still do, yeah. As far
You know,
what,
Is
when
it a
I
good
look-
ordinance?
It is a good ordinance.
Can you
I
get
mean-
us a copy?
Sure, it's much.
Oh, we
similar-
could probably go to the website.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm looking at
they
it.
don't have any of their ordinances on.
Oh, you don't?
No, their ordinances are kind of like ours. They need to be recodified.
Okay. That's all right.
However, you know, we didn't have a problem until we had a rooster that came into town, and that's when we decided that we had to look at the chicken ordinance. I mean,
Mhm.
as of right now, we don't have any problems with any chickens. We have not had any complaints of chickens in the village here.
Oh, okay.
There's dozens of people, I'm sorry, but there are dozens of people who have chickens in Hortonville.
There,
And,
there are?
yes. And so it's something that currently exists, I think, and have you had any complaints?
No.
Okay.
And we had the same thing. We had just a lot of people who had chickens in the village. And then once we enacted an ordinance for the chickens, our chicken population probably tripled, if not quadrupled. It just went skyrocket once people knew that they could have chickens, and then we started having the complaints of chickens. Cause that's when the roosters all of a sudden started showing up.
Yeah, and if you look through here, I think all of these, or some, if not all, don't allow roosters.
Right.
Yeah. So that will,
That's when we started having the problem,
Right.
once we put the ordinance into place.
Was in Shockton?
I mean, roosters are, I know, the one thing I've noticed a lot, and I looked at a lot of municipalities, at least 10, most of them don't have that you have to have a premise ID, and that's required by the state. That's a mandatory requirement for anybody who has any type of livestock or poultry. Then the second thing, and this is just from personal experience, everyone says it needs to be contained, but it needs to be one step further, and I think in the village that we have a lot of houses in close proximity, a lock on the door. And I know that might seem silly, but in the past, we had a curious young neighbor who thought it was kind of neat to come look at chickens and if you're living close enough to someone, a child could come in the yard anyway, or if you're just walking away and shutting the door and thinking it latches. But that's the enclosure, but nobody, not even the city of Appleton, says a lock. And it could even just be something that's a child-proof lock.
Chris, what are your thoughts on putting this ordinance into effect? Is it gonna be more harmful than good? Because at one point when I was pushing this a couple of years ago, Bob turned to me and said, "Why are you doing this?" Because he said, right now, we're not having any problems, and there's very few, like Julie said, maybe a dozen people who have chickens. and we haven't had any complaints, and he said, once you put in an ordinance, now you have issues. Now, you have to watchdog it, and you have to make sure they comply with all the laws that we have now created. So, what are your feelings?
Well, it's kind of a twofold thing. For the protection of the animal, it's good to have an ordinance. Because there's people who have chickens who may not be sanitarily trying to make sure that the coops are up off the ground, that they're cleaning their coops. I mean, who's gonna be responsible for doing the health inspections of these chickens? Is that gonna fall on the police department? Is that gonna fall on the building inspector? I mean, these chickens have to, in most cases, the chicken coops are supposed to be, or mandated to be 10 feet from a residence, or from a residential structure, you know, so, but then on the other hand, once we put an ordinance in place in Shiocton, then everybody had chickens. Because now it's like, okay, I can have them, so I want them. So, I guess you have to figure out which one is more important
And you
to
know,
have
I
an
guess-
ordinance, because I mean, if you don't have an ordinance in place, and then all of a sudden all these people start getting chickens, and now we have no ordinance to fall back on, you have that problem too, so it's kind of,
If an animal gets sick, or if an animal, somebody believes is being mistreated, I look, like at the city of Appleton, I know, it says on theirs that if you suspect your chicken is sick, or and that was the whole premise ID thing, you have to contact public health. Well, we don't have a city public health nurse, we would have to do county public health. Did Shiocton do that?
well, we have a city public health nurse in Shiocton.
Okay,
So anytime we had any kind of public health needs, we would go to her.
okay,
I mean, she was going to the houses with us as far as molds and
we don't have that here.
and things like that, but we don't have one here. I don't know that Appleton's gonna come out unless we find out that somebody's got, 40, 50, 60 chickens. You know, then they may, at 20 chickens, they may say, handle it yourself, or depending upon the problem. I don't know.
So what do you wanna do?
Well, I agree with Chris, and I also agree with Jeannie, but I think something has to be in place for size limitation, number one. And again, how they're kept. Locking is a good issue. So maybe we can develop something that's really just a simplified form of an ordinance without too many limitations.
Don't we
It's-
have an ordinance on animals now?
Just dogs and cats.
We do,
It's
we
under-
do, but it does say,
It's all animals.
it says no
No foul.
fowl.
Livestock.
Oh, it
So,
does?
Yes, no livestock, no fowl.
So then the dozen or so people that you're telling us have that.
Are all in violation.
Are in violation.
Yeah.
But what teeth do you have to do anything? I mean, at this point, it would
Well, it's
be
an ordinance,
probably a
it's
letter, an ordinance violation, but it's not,
Right.
it'd be a letter probably from the village, saying you have an ordinance violation.
And that usually would start with a complaint from a resident. It's no different than grass or snow. We're not gonna go seeking
Yeah,
to find it, we're gonna take a
Right.
complaint and then we're gonna follow up on a complaint.
I mean, the only thing I see, like, we don't have a public health nurse, so I think we need to consider maybe even asking the county if they cover any communities. I think maybe a smaller task force on this, what do you wanna do? Just sit down and maybe compile this data
Yeah,
and bring it back?
The reason I handed these out is these are good discussion points.
Mm.
And I thought maybe what we would do is just a general overview tonight and then set a meeting specifically just for this and pick through it a little at a time.
Yeah, because it is a very detailed thing.
Yeah, it
If we're
is.
starting a new ordinance,
Right.
I think we definitely need to spell out every single step that we can, because we're gonna end up having people come back at us.
I'm
we
gonna
had
ask
a-
a really dumb question. And maybe we already said this, but just leaving it alone, I mean, why isn't that an option until it becomes a problem?
And that's another, yeah, good point. You had no complaints.
If we've had no
Right.
complaints, we've
Right.
got no issues, we've got,
They're
if
visible
if
from the road.
Chris is talking about, if we do it, it's almost like igniting the, lighting the match, and now it comes,
But it also puts Jane in an awkward spot though too, because if somebody calls and says, are chickens allowed in the village? Right now, the answer is no,
right,
Right.
and that's,
and that's
And
the
then,
answer.
and then at that point, if they wish to file a complaint with the police department, then we follow up with them. We're probably giving them a 10-day notice that they can't have their chickens. You know, most people who have chickens are hiding their chickens.
right.
Yeah, they are.
Because,
Well,
No, they're
quite honestly,
Except
that's probably
Julie.
not a bad thing,
Like-
Julie
like
had hers
Julie.
out right by Main Street.
but that's probably not a bad thing.
But 40, 50 feet back from me, but they
No.
were visible from Main Street.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything.
They were
to anybody.
visible. No, and
there's
they're not,
been no complaint.
Right,
No.
that's what I'm saying. So
and I
it's
had
kinda
a
like,
neighbor that would
why should you be
complain.
poking the
You
bear
did?
here?
No, I had a
I
neighbor
agree with you.
who, if he was gonna
No.
complain, that was the
Leave
person
it
who
alone.
complained, and he loved having them there.
I mean, Jane's, it's not putting her in a bad
Other
light.
days.
I think if
Hmm?
somebody calls and says,
You
hey,
butchered them?
if chicken's allowed, she's
We don't.
gotta answer no.
no,
Oh,
and usually with the
oh,
ordinances, you're not allowed to butcher them.
Like
Porridge,
Julier's,
pets.
they buck it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the butchering was another question too, is that not every ordinance includes that, and not a
And
lot
most
of people are
of them
comfortable with butchering in town. These are kept as true pets, they're not, I would say meat birds is very different than a laying hen. Because
Yes.
raising meat birds, they're fast growers, in 6 weeks, they're ready for butchering. I personally don't want butchering of hens in my neighborhood. However, I don't mind fresh eggs.
Right.
That's a very different, a pet is very different than meat production.
And
So what I
think that's
gather,
what- I'm sorry. I think that is what most of the people in town are doing. It's for their eggs.
right.
They're named.
And
It's not.
these chickens, they are pets to these
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
people
Yes.
who have these chickens. They're named, they lay eggs.
Yes,
They,
Are they
I mean,
pets, Oliver?
they take very good care of them.
They're
I mean,
pets, aren't they? Yeah,
they are pets.
yeah.
so what do you do with that pet? Just let it expire
And they live,
naturally?
they live
7
14,
years.
17 years,
Oh,
They,
some
they,
of them.
15,
Wow.
yeah, they're like a
Really?
cat.
Holy
Yeah.
I
mackerel.
only thought they lived there 8 or 9.
No, they can live
No
a
different
very
than
long
if you
time.
lost a cat or
That's why we
lost an animal.
had this
when you-
rooster in town,
You're
and
right.
she lived right on the edge
Take it
of
to the vet and
Bovina.
euthanize it.
So she was just gonna
You
get
could.
permission from the
Oh, you
neighbor
could.
to put the coop.
Okay, so in an
Like
effort to
5 feet
move,
this way.
I'm sorry, Chris. In an effort to
That
move
was her
this,
baby.
in an effort to move this along, maybe we should just table this
Okay.
until such time we have complaints and we can address it then. Does that sound good?
I would prefer to have something ready and roll it out if we need to roll it out. I mean, and I can work on something to that effect, so that if we do have a problem and we start having problems, we're prepared.
Okay,
That's fine, that's
Fair
absolutely
enough.
Bring in
fine.
your ordinance from
Yep.
Cheyenne.
so you'll start it?
Oh, you don't want my ordinance from Shayacton.
No?
I thought you said it was a good one.
It is a good one, but you start looking at some of these and they're better. Their village
Oh,
board
okay.
just kind of threw together something and they
Sure.
just put in the paragraph that we currently have, allowing them to have so many of them. But you look at the Appleton one, that's the one that I went with. Appleton, you go with Appleton, Grand Chute, Seymour, it's all very detailed. They're in the area. The public health has dealt with those ordinances, so I think that's why I like to stay closer. to
There's a
home.
group called City Peeps as
There
well.
is.
City
There is.
Peeps, and I can get you in touch with some of those, so I can help you
Yep.
as, yeah, okay.
Without any knowledge of the ordinances, and Peter, I know you want to be going, but is there a fee that it has to be paid to the village to,
Yes,
okay.
See, and we didn't have one in Shayacton.
there are fees.
I think
But
we
I think
should.
it's like, if
Yeah,
it's
we
gonna be a
should.
dog or a cat, you gotta have a
Mhm.
license for
I
that.
think we should.
Yep, I agree.
Because you're
Oh,
registering them.
Okay, so Chris is gonna move forward to
All right.
develop some boilerplate, and we'll just keep it undercover until such time we have an issue.
Sounds good.
Fair enough? All right. Second, 3B, solution to citizens using municipal center parking lot to cut through. I've gotten complaints from people who've been up here about somebody coming in either one of these entrances and whipping through here at a high rate of speed. Al and I were standing outside one time, months ago, and somebody came zipping through. So I talked to Carl and I thought maybe some speed bumps, not necessarily in here where the parking is, but not at the entrance, but where it starts to widen out into the parking. One there, which should be on this end, and one over here. So that was what Carl and I had discussed. I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Dave?
Speed bumps are really hard to plow
Wow.
around
Well-
and everything else too, but
That was, and they're not cheap.
I was
Okay.
gonna say, what
Yeah,
is
Do we
My
have,
my first opinion, having been in property maintenance for 20 years, they are a pain in the rear end to
But
plow
they're-
and maintain around.
But there are some that are removable.
They are.
yep.
They are removable in the summer months. I think Chris and I discussed it. The sign's not very visible on the pole down there that says not a through thoroughfare.
they're still gonna do it. After school is
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
the worst. It's staff, parents, it's.
I've seen people actually come in here, Julie, though, and then turn left. Go through and then turn left too. I think they're avoiding the stop sign.
Yeah, they are.
So they can make
Yeah,
a
they
right
are.
turn only without stopping.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
It's awful.
I mean, it might be more, to make the sign just more standout with some flags or something, or,
And the other thing that I would suggest, and not to put more burden on you, Chris, but have somebody just kind of, I mean, if we know when it's happening, have one of your officers stand out here and write a ticket.
But it happens at all times of the day and night.
that's hard to.
It's hard to pin it down.
I mean, if people start getting tickets for doing it,
Yeah.
and people start hearing that, yeah, all of a sudden you get, oh my God, I got a ticket for doing this, especially you get a kid
Yeah.
in high school, you give them a $50 ticket for running through there, all of a sudden it's gonna be holy mackerel, we
Yeah.
better not do that anymore.
We could be proactive too and reach out to Todd. Maybe that's our best, say something at school or something that goes to parents. You know, if we can be proactive and basically let them know that, hey, we've had issues with people.
Can you write a citation?
No,
Really?
it's a parking lot. I can't write a.
Oh.
But even if there's a sign out there that
Yeah.
says not a throughway?
Is there anything we can change in any kind of ordinance that makes this separate than other parking lots in the village?
Why not? We're the board, we can make an ordinance for darn near anything, as long as it's not
It's a
against the
safety.
Constitution.
You know, my concern is it
The only
comes,
The only thing you could write would be trespassing,
But it's
but
public.
But if we,
I know
I mean, no, if we made a specific ordinance that says you cannot cut through here, and if you're caught cutting through here like that guy is doing right now, and I
See?
see this, like I said, Peter, I was gonna say, we sit here and I bet you once a meeting, you'll see somebody zipping through here. and I'm like, eh.
Well, it's also now a Pokestop.
But anyway.
Pokemon.
you know, you can't stop them from cutting through, I think. It's the speed that everybody's
No,
concerned about.
I don't, you.
I don't
why
know,
can't
can you
make a-
stop them from cutting through?
Sure, this isn't a street.
It's not a street.
All right,
Make an ordinance that says you can't cut through and give her the.
It's a municipal driveway and.
Give her the teeth to give an ordinance, and make it $100, so that
Can
the
you do
first
that?
guy that comes through, it's
How
like,
do you-
holy crap.
how do you ticket them though? How do you catch them?
They have cameras.
All you gotta do is
No, the
stand there
cameras-
and watch.
No.
You catch your driver's license as they drive by. I witnessed it as the police officer. You jump in the car, you follow them and to pull them over and just say, here's $100 ticket.
So you're gonna have to have somebody stationed there, sitting in a car.
Peter, I'm not suggesting that that's an ideal thing, but all I'm saying is getting a ticket to somebody, I think, as you said, getting the word out that we're serious about not cutting through here, and we're gonna give tickets, I think will help a lot in getting.
Word gets
stopping.
around.
I agree. You know, we're not gonna patrol it regularly, but you're gonna catch some people. Now, if they have business here, if they stop at the library or whatever, that's visible. Like Kelly's saying, it's just what we see.
Right.
And if the person goes all the way through from one end to the other, the squad car is gonna pull them over.
Get their
Right,
license
Chris?
plate.
Pretty gutsy. if you ask me. Yeah. So is it just a matter of an ordinance? Is this, what do we?
Well,
Chris is a.
What can you do, Chris?
yeah, I would say
Yes
we
or no?
pass a
it's
separate.
gotta, it's gotta be an ordinance, cause. I
Okay,
can't write
so
that.
let's go that route.
No, I mean, that's what.
I'll work on finding the right category where it's gotta fall.
Okay,
Okay.
easy enough.
And like, $100,
I love the speed bump
make
idea,
it,
but-
make it sting.
And that might be something that you tell
Get 'em in
Todd
the
over
pocketbook.
Yeah,
there for the high school,
Yeah,
is
probably
that
have to put a sign, no.
There is one.
There is
There is
one. Yeah,
There is
but no one notices. We were
But
thinking
it's
about
also
talking
not
about
just
bigger
high
sign.
school, it's not just high school,
It's not just high school, but at least the kids will have a heads up that,
Facebook.
Yep, and
hey,
put it
if
out
they
there.
could get
And
fined
then
on
through somebody
it's
does.
kids and it's
The
parents.
first guy you get.
It's, I see adults, minivans pulling through.
I'll look for an appropriate.
okay, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay,
Another issue, parking campers and trailers on village streets, that was an issue that was brought up.
We don't have an ordinance for that either.
Oh, boy.
But I have a perfect example of an ordinance that I found today.
I have
Um,
several of them.
Comes from my hometown. I was part of the planning commission when we implemented this. Boat, trailer, RV parking restricted. No boat, trailer, camping trailer, fifth wheel mobile home or motor home shall be parked or left standing on public streets within corporate city limits of the city between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. That says they can do it, but they have to be removed at least once a day. So if you're gonna camper or a trailer, you're gonna move it. Except with the express written permission of the police department. Unattached semi-trailers in no case will be allowed to be parked on the public street. Police permission shall be freely given to accommodate out-of-town visitors for a duration of a stay. Permission shall also be given in those circumstances where an emergency exists, making it impossible for a vehicle or trailer to be parked on the property's owner due to construction or other good cause, as may be determined by the police chief. Any permit so to park on public streets, however, shall in no case extend beyond the duration of the emergency necessitating the parking. And then it's also defined by 340-01 of the Wisconsin State Statutes.
Okay, with all that said, the reason that's on your agenda, Peter, is because we're having complaints?
We have
Yeah.
had numerous. Last year,
Last year.
Parker Heights subdivision, there was a permanent camper on the end of that road. That is
Okay.
now a thoroughfare to the
Okay.
new
No, no, no.
road that's being installed.
Well, then I would just suggest, let's come up with an ordinance and let's
Yeah.
get it taken care of.
Dave will work on one.
Perfect.
And it would be added to section 7.05, which is parking restrictions in the village. So we would have to have the language and add
Okay.
it. So,
Wonderful.
Easy enough.
Okay, moving right along. Excessive noise issues in the village, had a few complaints on that.
I'm gonna go back to this one for a minute.
Go.
So, it says that it can't be parked there for how long? Here's the issue. We need to either go 24 hours or 48 hours,
No.
because then we know. If that vehicle has been parked there for 48 hours for 2 days straight, we're gonna ask them to remove it or we're gonna tow it. However, if they give the chance in the word, in how you word it, look, and I suggest that you look at Seymour's.
Yep.
Because Seymour's, Kaunas, Shayakin, they're all the same. Because if that vehicle is still there for 2 days in a row, it's a violation.
Well, Chris, I'm gonna suggest that Dave gets with you before it comes to us and make sure you
It's
guys
just-
are on the
it's-
same.
And how do they prove that they moved it once?
Right, that's the problem that we're gonna have.
That's why you have the little chalk marks.
Right,
Tire chalk,
tire chalk,
Well-
yeah.
God, that's amazing.
that's a pain.
yeah.
But at least it tells the person that you're looking at it.
I know, but then you gotta,
Google Earth.
Moving it 5 feet to me is not moving it.
No, I
No.
understand.
You know, that,
We did that before too.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
You
anyway,
know,
you guys will come up with the language and we'll.
we had those games played down on Main Street, remember that?
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Where they would back up one tire
Yep,
rotation?
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
no, absolutely.
yeah, that's
Anyway.
playing the game totally.
That's a way, there's ways around that.
Chris
Okay,
and I'll
so-
work on language for both of those, the
Perfect.
municipal center as well as the camper and parking trailer. Okay.
Thank you, David.
All right, excessive noise issues in the village. There were some complaints, some people came in over, what's the street that goes back in, Lake, dead end?
Junior.
Yeah, Lakeview Drive. Somebody must be working on a car over there, or a hot rod or something. Any complaints? Nick?
no, the
No?
more complaints that we get are at,
Bar.
the bar
Yeah, I was
downtown.
gonna say, it's not
Yeah,
junior.
The only
Oh.
complaint I have is engine braking, but we already have an ordinance about that,
We
and
do.
that is just terrible.
We
Your
do.
sister-in-law.
Jake break and then it's,
It's bad.
Well, because we don't have any, we're not gonna go forward on the chicken issue, you might end up with a few complaints on roosters, if you haven't already, which you said you haven't. Okay, so no issues that you've heard, no complaints,
On,
excessive noise issues?
Other than downtown.
Yeah, other than
downtown, the one bar.
All right, number 4, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? Anybody else? Okay,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
I'm
Adjourned.
fire.
Tons of time left, Peter.